they acted as if I wasn't there. So I kind of busied myself looking at pamphlets and flyers and whatnot until I went into the service. Nobody did anything until the specific greeting time. Like, nobody went out of their way to talk to me until it was kind of like, okay, this is the time to go out of your way and talk to somebody. And I stood up. I didn't know anybody. And so I figured I'd wait, see what happened. Looked a little awkward, looked around, nobody did anything, nobody looked at me, nobody said anything to me. And then eventually, a woman who was sitting in the same pew as me, farther on down, kind of waved to me and said hi. So I waved back politely, and I turned around and there were, I believe, 3 men who shook my hands, but nobody really said anything to me at all. It was more kind of a, you're right here, so I'll welcome you, as opposed to ask you any questions about yourself or react that you're a new face or find out about you. The minister did realize that I was a new person. He did come and talk to me and ask me several questions about myself and where I was from, what I was doing here. Very slim, I think. Apart from the person here who I already know, you, I didn't feel like that many people tried to make me welcome enough that I would really want to be there. I don't really like the church that much, I'll be honest. I think that the church has, as a whole, I mean, not singling out any like specific congregation, as a whole, every church, everywhere, I think, generally speaking, kind of misses the mark. I just don't think that a lot of people get it. Like, I don't know, there's just, so much seems to be missing, and it's just like, that I came here today and felt unwelcomed. I think that's an example of places where the church really fails.
Thank you very much. Now, once again, I present that to you, not with the thought in mind of, oh, you terrible, terrible St. Johnians, how dare you? No, I present this to you because this is exactly what I'm talking about today. You have a Christian spiritually seeking a home, and yet she slipped through our fingers. She walked amongst us looking lost on purpose, hoping that someone would just guide her in a direction, tell her which way to go. Yet, when we interviewed her, she could only report 2 people that made direct personal contact with her, one of them being Pastor Stephen. And of those 2 people, only one asked her name. Furthermore, when being told about any ministries here at St. John's, the only ministries she were told about, and I appreciate the endorsement, were the youth ministries. Except there's a small problem with that. Carrie's in her 20s. Now, if I were in my 20s, well, I am in my 20s, and someone immediately assumed I was a youth, I don't know how I'd feel about that. No one dared to ask her her name, her age, her hobbies, her interests, her favorite books or movies, anything that you might ask someone that you knew for 5 minutes and you were enjoying a cup of coffee with. Why didn't we? Do you see the problem here? And what I think is the real problem is perception. Our perception and their perception. Now, I say their perception. I'd love to see their perception change too. But I don't get to preach at an assembled, unchurched meeting. I do get to preach at an assembled meeting of Christians. And therefore, I think that it is the church's responsibility to move to changing some of the perceptions of the unchurched of all ages, the spiritually seeking. Now, some of you may be wondering, oh, how much can perception really mean? We're talking about such a huge thing. We're talking about God. Perception can't mean that much. Join me in another experiment. Please, everyone, if you'd be so kind as to close your eyes for a moment. All right, everyone got their eyes closed? Perfect. I want you to think of Jesus. What a simple thing to do in church. An image of Jesus Christ. Does everyone have one? You may open your eyes. Now, for some of you, you may have thought of a very simple image of Jesus Christ, such as the crucifix. It's a very common symbol within our faith. It's the symbol of salvation. You may have thought of something like this. It's been painted on, European monasteries for years and years and years. The crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Some of you, that's the first thing you think of when you think of Christ. And it's a fine thing to think of because it is, in fact, our salvation. Now, some of you, maybe not as into death, may have thought of that picture that's been hanging in every grandmother's house since the beginning of time. Very royal, regal Jesus with the light beam behind him. Very stoic figure. That might be your Jesus. Me? I'm a little off-center. I'm a little weird. My Jesus looks a little something like this. Smiling face, giving a thumbs up. Jesus is your buddy. He's your friend. That's how I think of Jesus. Now, in my opinion, all three of those Jesuses are just fine. Nothing wrong with any of them. But can you see how the perception between those three Jesuses can greatly change the way the story would be interpreted? In popular media today, the church's perception is no longer what it used to be. The church was once known very much to be a safe place, a haven for good thoughts and good deeds, and it's where you went when you had trouble and there was somebody to give you a cup of coffee and help you out. I believe the church still is that thing, but in the popular media today, the church is often viewed as an organized religion with a political agenda. The church is often viewed as judgmental or negative. It is dominated by males and oppresses females. The church is homophobic. The church is arrogant. The church hates change and outcasts people who do not fit into their Christian bubble. These are the most common complaints from the emerging generation when it comes to the church. Now, those are powerful, powerful claims, and I want to say that I don't think they're true, especially here. I don't think those are true statements at all. Once again, the problem is not what the truth is. The problem is what is the perception. I think that perceptions are doing us in. Furthermore, I think that if Carrie would have been here a little longer, got to meet a few more of you, got to talk to a few more of you, she'd have had a completely different perception of what St. John's was than what that video is. I find you all warm and welcoming since the first day I've been here. But we had different perceptions. A quick note from the book, They Like Jesus But Not the Church by Dan Kimball. Dan Kimball interviewed a young man named Duggan who had the following to say: I'd like to find a church that was more like a family, a healthy family where everyone looks out for one another, a church that loves you even when you aren't doing well. Love should never be conditional. I think Jesus would be there for me when I'm doing good and bad, and I wish the church were more loving like that. He goes on to say, I wish pastors and leaders were more like baristas in coffee shops or bartenders. They're always glad to see you, happy when you come back, happy to listen, never judge, and offer you advice. The first step towards reaching people for Christ outside of these walls, we must love everyone. We have to be like Jesus Christ. The simplest answer I can ever give you in a church. The more the church acts like Jesus, the better off the church will be. We must love everyone. This is one of the problems when Carrie came through here. Some people might have seen a new face and thought, someone should talk to her. Not me, but someone should. Some people might have wanted to go over there, but didn't. Now, when I was playing in a rock and roll band, this is one of those road stories. No. When I was playing in a rock and roll band, we weren't that good. We barely left Toledo once. But we had a very loyal following. People who were willing to show up week in and week out, pay hard-earned money to see my band play, and they were willing to buy merchandise and keep us on the road. One time someone asked me, Ryan, that's ridiculous. You guys aren't that good. How do you pull that off? How do you get people to spend hard-earned dollars every week to see you play? I told them the simplest answer I knew. I am genuinely in love with every person that walks through that door.